It's actually setting up to go now.
No, cool.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you never know with some of these things.
No, and when you ask specific questions and you're like, "Can I do X, Y, and Z?" Yep, no problem. And then it's
no
like,
problem.
"Yeah, no."
So we may be live now.
Excellent. Let me. I'm trying to see it on the phone here. Oh, there we are. Yes, we are. We are live. I see it there.
Cool.
Peekaboo.
There we are.
Let me minimize this screen so I can maximize that screen. I can see me. I can't see you. So you got to hit the little button down at the bottom that says start video or.
There we go.
You are.
Yeah.
There you are.
Man, this is fancy.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Pretty cool. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I can't complain. I'm here. So let's give it a. We're a little bit early, but I'm glad that we got that squared away because it took a few minutes. But we'll go live. Start talking or whatever at 12 because that's when I think everybody is thinking. So, but we already got 9-10 people there. So
really, that's cool.
And I think that this gets recorded. At least that's what they told me.
Well, I know the Facebook Live, we can leave that in there, and then with the Facebook Live, we can download the Facebook Live and use it for other stuff if we need to.
Yeah,
make sure it's still on there.
All right, let me get my tasty, refreshing beverage. I'll be right back. And this segment is brought to you by Vitamin Water.
You know what? The only thing that I see that's kind of funky is that there's a little bit of a delay between us and what's happening on Facebook.
Oh, there always is. It's like maybe a 10-second delay or so.
So, and one of the things too I see is that you have to be logged in like on your phone on Facebook to be able to see questions and stuff people ask.
I have my phone right there, so I have that going so we can see that.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, cool. So I think we're good. I mean, we got 16 people on, and so I think we're ready to roll. Cool,
man. So what are you going to talk about today, John?
Well, the first thing I think we want to talk about, Jason, is, we'll give a little bit of history about each of us, who we are, what we've done, and kind of our story about how we got into the business. I know you've shared it with me in the past that you didn't really have a big SOI where you started your business, and you've grown to a successful business. And I kind of have a similar story. So there's a lot of people out there struggling with this particular thing, how to get going. And I don't have a big SOI. I just moved to this area. So let's hear from you. Let's hear your story about how you got into the business with your pickup truck.
Yeah, man. Well, what happened? I was in college, and basically I'd taken a real estate course because I'd looked at, my dad was a contractor, and I wanted to make a lot of money. And I looked around at like his friends and people that I grew up with and said, hey, who has, whose parents make a lot of money? And pretty much they were a contractor, an insurance salesman, or a real estate agent. And so I decided to go with real estate agent. And basically I got licensed when I was still in college. I decided that I wanted to sell condos on the ocean, and I finished college like on a Tuesday, and on Thursday I was living in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So not only did I live in a new city, I lived in a city that literally I'd been living at for just a matter of days. I didn't know my next door neighbor. I knew nobody at all. I was 22 years old. I was literally the definition of a broke college student. And then I go out and get a job because I need to work part-time, right? I need money to pay. Well, I was actually working like full-time, but I need to pay my bills. So what ended up happening was I would do real estate like all day from like 8 to like 3 or 4. And then I would go work at a theater called the Carolina Opry from like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon until I was the guy that closed the theater after all the shows. So I would get to go home like 11 o'clock at night. So, man, I was working from 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. But a lot of the reason was because I wanted to succeed. I didn't want to be at the theater forever, you know. But I started with zero money, zero money, zero sphere of influence. Um, Pretty much as close to zero with everything as you can get. You know, I had a place to live. That was like the only thing. I did live in the market that I was working in. But how about you, John? I know you kind of started with a similar story.
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I was a network engineer during the dot coms, and that was going on from like 1996 to 2001 or so when the dot com world started to blow up. And I lived up in central New Hampshire, but I worked down in Massachusetts, so I didn't really know anybody up here. And I had a very small circle. It was my ex-wife's family, and they're a small family, so it wasn't a lot of people. And when the dot-com ended up blowing up in 2001, I knew that I had about 8 months left to work. I was actually told that, so I studied for my license, got my license early of 2002. And I did have a little bit of money because they gave me a severance package, and I was able to collect unemployment until I got my first check, my first commission check. So I did have a little bit of a safety net, but nothing great. And when I came into it, I just came into it full bore. I said, I got 10 grand to survive, and I need to stop making some money. So I hit it right off the bat without anybody telling me really what to do or how to do it, or, no Popeyes. I just started knowing that I needed to go meet people. And so what did I do? I was right across the street from a big fruit store, like a farm fruit store, and vegetables and stuff and baked goods. And we got 13 firehouses in the city. So I started to go over there and pick up 2 or 3 bags of stuff every day, throw my information in there, and go to the firehouses and just talk to the people that were working there. And that's really how I started to get my business going. I did have a couple sales right away because I had, some people that I was networking with. So when I hit the ground with like 5 sales right away, and that helped springboard me.
I tell you, like the first big moment for me when I said, hey, I got to do something was I didn't really have the money to do mail, because in my office, there was one guy that was doing like $4 or $5 million a year. And I'd started at like a really small independent brokerage. And I think there might have been like 7 agents total there, 7 or 8 agents. There was one guy doing about 4 or 5 million. He was like the superstar of the group, and this was back in 2003, 2004. They just got MLS like on the computer, I started right after the MLS book was gone, so that tells you, kind of gives you an idea how long I've been in the business. But there was one guy, and all he did was mail, and he did massive amounts of mail. And I couldn't afford to do what he was doing. He had a nice looking newsletter. He was paying to have it printed up every month. Sure. I mean, it probably costed, at the time, it probably costed still 50, 60 cents to mail out. And I couldn't afford to do all that. So I was looking around. And one of the biggest things that my first big aha moments was I actually switched offices. That was kind of my first one. But I met this guy that was listing an insane amount of properties in my market. And I said, hey, what are you doing? And he told me that at the time, he was a Mike Ferry agent. He goes, oh man, I'm doing Mike Ferry. You got to do it. It's the greatest thing ever. And I said, well, I don't know what it is. So he gave me the VHS copies of one of Mike Ferry's superstar retreats.
VHS.
So I go home and literally watch the superstar retreat, I think, straight through. I think it was like a 3-day thing, and I watched it all at one time, taking notes and everything. And what I learned was, and I didn't know any better than this at the time, what I learned was if I called a bunch of people and basically just said, hey, do you want to sell your house? At some point, somebody is going to tell me yes. That's kind of what I learned. I mean, it was like brute force. You know what I mean? And it was pain. I'll tell you what, it was painful starting out, because some days, man, I would sit there in the office by myself and I would make calls for like 4 to 6 hours. Again, this was the time that we didn't have things like RedX back then, right? Mm-hmm. So to look up the expireds, you had to actually physically look them up. There was no easy thing that got them to your email. I remember sitting there. I would go home some nights and I would look up numbers for 3-4 hours at night so that I could make 2 or 3 hours of calls in the morning. And I would just go through these lists over and over again sometimes. And but back then, like a lot of people had house phones, you know. So we didn't really text back then. You know, that was 2003, 2004. But I would make calls for 4 to 6 hours a day, sometimes to get one listing. And I had this guy in my. It was a little bit frustrating at first because I had this guy in my office that was like a master. I mean, this guy was. We'd have the office meetings, and they would go around the office, and it was like half the meeting was just him telling us about his listings, like one after the other. The guy was really good on the phone. But what I started learning to do, what I started doing was I said, hey, if I just do what he's doing, I should be able to get the same results. So I started modeling what he was doing and copying, you know, listening to him on the phone, asking him 100 questions. And then, you know, sometimes I would call him and I would ask questions until he just hung up the phone on me.
You know what's awesome? You know what's awesome about that is the thing that I just picked up there is that you learned from an agent that was doing it. And I kind of did the same thing. I worked with a company right off the bat for maybe about 6 weeks, and I met my broker, who ended up being my broker for about 8 or 9 years. He was at a Remax, and he said, hey, why don't you come over here? You're over there, blah, blah, blah. He convinced me the split was way better. I went over there. I didn't even know who this guy was. Unbeknownst to me, his father was like the 10th busiest agent in the state, right? This guy just killed it. And he had a telemarketer, and they followed this concept called the 10-10-20 rule. And I actually still teach the 10-10-20 rule and follow it when I need to. And what that is when a property is just listed or just sold, he was calling basically the whole neighborhood, because statistically 10 on either side on this, 10 on in either direction on the same side of the street, or 20 on the opposite side of the street, they're also going to sell within like a 6-month period. So here he is, he's got somebody banging out the phone, he's taking the follow-up phone calls. And I said, I got to get to that point too. But unfortunately, I don't have the money to hire a telemarketer, and actually to find a good one, it's hard. It's really hard to find a good one. And so I started to do what he did. At first, I started to map out what he was doing, and I'm like, wow, that concept works. So then I started to copy what he was doing, and that's really how I started to grow my business, was just by copying him, by doing the same thing. And yeah, there was some phone time, and even to this day, you have to pick up that telephone.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think that agents, I mean, I get a lot of messages from new agents, and I know you do too, but I think a lot of agents are looking for a quick and easy way. They're looking for a way not to make the calls themselves, and they're looking for that telemarketer. The problem I see with it is a lot of agents who hire a telemarketer, a lot of times they get kind of, I don't want to say scammed, but they get roped into hiring one of these Filipino companies where the person doesn't speak real good English, and, you know, and, you know, it's hard to, you know, they're speaking to, you know, somebody on the other side of the world that's setting an appointment for them. Then they show up to the appointment, and there's a big disconnect between the system that telemarketer is following and the system that that agent is following. You know, I see that a lot. I see a lot of agents trying to skip that step of actually making the calls themselves. What do you think about that?
I think it is your business, and the only way to run your business is to lead your business like a good leader. And the only way you can really grow is to duplicate a system that you perfected. You know, I'll break it down to McDonald's, right? The burger place, they don't make the best burger in the world, but Ray Kroc sat there for 2 years learning how to perfect the system, because he knew all he had to do was make a perfect system and then duplicate it. So you actually have to get in there and get dirty and get your hands dirty and do the crap that you hate to do. I hate phone calling too. I hate picking up the phone. I'd rather be in my pool. But I pick up the phone 2 to 3 hours a day to make those phone calls, to make the follow-ups, to hit the new expireds. It all comes down to having that in your time block every single day for at least an hour to 2 hours. Because if you're not doing that, what are you doing?
Yep. I think those systems, man, they have to be scalable. You know, because like this is what I see a lot of agents do, and I've been guilty of this myself. Everything I tell you, like I see agents guilty of doing, I've done myself, and I've struggled through, you know. But one of the things an agent will do is they go out here and get a listing, or they think to get a listing there's this like really expensive process they got to go to. Then when they get the listing, they think like, wow, we got to get drone footage. We got to have this. We got to have a talking house on the front that you can log in with your radio, you know, your car radio, and listen to it. So there's all this shit they think they got to do. And so to take a listing, man, they take a listing, then it cost them $300 or $400 to get the listing on the market with all the stuff they promised the seller. The problem is with that, they end up in positions where they're like, mentally they're going, oh my God, I listed 3 houses this month. I can't go list the 4th one because I won't be able to pay my mortgage after I pay for the drone guy, you know? So a lot of agents come up with these systems that are so expensive to duplicate, they can't financially do it. And, you know, I really believe that we're not in the business of selling houses. We're in the business of selling a system that sells houses. We just happen to get paid on its performance. And I think most agents, they don't never come up with that system. So when they're talking to either a buyer or a seller, they just kind of do whatever they think they should do in the moment, or tell everybody whatever they think they should in the moment. And then they can never replicate that over and over again. So when they look at, a lot of them, when they look at me or they look at you, they think that we're getting lucky. You know, oh man, Jason got really lucky. He listed a house yesterday, or he listed 4 last week, or it's because of his network. But the thing is, the real reason is because I do the same thing over and over until I suffer from repetitious boredom.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that's what a lot of the business is. You can't change up every listing or every time you make calls, because then that's going to mess up your whole system before, and you can't keep replicating it over and over again.
No, there's definitely some truth to that, and there's a lot of creative ways to be able to market a property free. I'm just going to say free, inexpensively too, but I'm going to throw out some free stuff here. You know, so you get a listing, and with every listing, you theoretically should be getting at least 1 piece of business. I know people that get 3. And how do you do that? You got to leverage the power of social media, leverage the power of Facebook. And that's done. You take that listing, you find the community pages, the yard sale groups, and you put it in there softly. You don't go in there like a bully. You go in there softly. Hey, just listed this beautiful home in whatever town, you know, blah, blah, blah. For more details, let me know. You'll get a bunch of people liking that, tagging other people, you know, sharing it or whatever. And then you get a lot of people PMing you or posting right on the thing asking for the private link. So now you have an option. What private link are you going to send to them? In this day and age, everybody needs to have a landing page of some sort. Now, there's systems out there like Elevated REM or Listings to Leads that you can use. But here's a free one. And you can have the property. You get your mortgage guy to sign up. It's like $50 a month. And then you have a property page that they can land on and capture the data and everything else like that. It's called List Reports. And there's infographics. The free account, as an agent, you get property sheets, open house sign-ins, all this other stuff. But if you want the digital landing page, your lender signs up and then you pick him as the preferred lender. So now all of a sudden I start sharing out that page and it looks really good. It's a professional looking page. At this point, I've spent no money. I've spent about an hour doing this. Half the time I'm doing it on my phone while I'm waiting for my kids to get out of school or practice or something like that. I'm like, hey, let me just add this one. And all of a sudden I start getting a bunch of engagement. It's that simple to get the list. I mean, I know the question that a lot of people are going to be asked, you know, how do you get the listing? And we can broach over to that. I think phone calls is definitely one of them where we can dig a little bit deeper. How long did it take to, David is asking a question. How long did it take to get your system in place? And Sharon, yeah, I'll repeat the landing page again. It's List Reports. That's it, listreports.com. Have your lender sign up, and you get that. How long did it take me to get my system in place? I'm still getting it in place. It's never in place. You always got to, way technology is moving, you always got to be slightly perfecting it. But I've been long
it's
time.
Never 100%.
No.
It took me, I don't know about you, but it took me a little while to learn that, like, I needed a system. Like, I thought I had a system, but really what I was doing was I'd get on the phone and tell people whatever I thought they wanted to hear, you know, so they'd let me in their door. And it wasn't until my system was like so crude, it wasn't replicable. So I would tell them whatever they wanted to hear. I'd get my foot in the door. Then I think I thought I was going to go to their house and just wear them down till they signed the paperwork. I'd go stay all afternoon. And it took me a little bit to learn that, you know, like, the only reason I was at their house was because the only reason they're letting me come to their house is because they think I can sell it. And the only reason I'm there is because it's my job. It wasn't really a social visit, you know? but it took me probably the first 3 or 4 years I was in business. I would just kind of, I had a basic system as far as a schedule. I knew I needed to make calls, and
Hmm.
I knew phrases and questions that worked for me. But to actually get a system in place, there was a little bit of a learning curve for me. Honestly, I probably should have paid attention to my coach a little bit more. I probably should have done more of what he told me a little bit sooner. But it wasn't until like I got to a point where honestly I was working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and I got
Hmm.
sick of what I was doing. I think I had a stomach ulcer, but I was scared to go to the doctor.
Burnout.
And yeah, I got through extreme burnout to the point I was like, hey, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
Hmm.
It wasn't that I didn't want to do real estate anymore. I just didn't want to do this stuff I'd been doing before already.
Mm.
So once I kind of went through that and said, hey, this is what I wanted to do, instead of trying to be really good at everything, I built systems around listing property, the things that I wanted to be good at that was going to allow me to leverage my time the most. So you can't have like 50 things you're working on. You can't have it's hard to have a system, be a one-man army and have a system for 30 different things, you're doing. There just isn't enough time in the day. But if you have one or two systems, one or two strategies that really works, for sale by owners, expireds,
Yeah.
for rent by owners, those systems are easy to put in place and you can actually do it like really quickly, you know.
Mm.
But if you're doing 50 different things, it's hard to have 50 different systems in place and you're a one-man person. That,
Yeah, no
that
doubt.
really, that really helps. And that was my problem too. I don't know if you had that, man, where you try to do too much.
I was doing everything. You mentioned talking houses. I had them in my trunk and the signs and
Oh
everything else like
God.
that. They were so miserable. I would do I've spent thousands of dollars on mailers and stuff. I've never seen the return. I've done just listed, just sold postcards. Never
Yep.
seen the return. So I have it whittled down to what works for me. And when a property is listed, we call the neighborhood. We put it in the
Yep.
community groups. We do the professional photography. And that's about it. We optimize the office as realtor.com enhanced, so I can go in there and enhance that. And one little thing I do is I go in there and I put call listing agent direct right in the description.
Yep.
you know,
That's,
um, whatever. And so that helps. But that's it. I don't go hog crazy because I'm sure you get the same thing too. Every single day there's 25 phone calls coming in selling us the greatest and latest product.
man.
I just don't
And
need it. I do 2 or 3 things well, and that's it.
that's me too. And I had to learn that, man. I can't, I mean, in my mind, I would like to do tons of video educating the market. I would like to do all this stuff. I'd like to, but in reality, like I've learned that if I try to do too many things, none of it's going to work out really well.
Yeah.
But man, I used to do the 1-800 signs. I thought I need the call capture,
Mm-hmm.
the little box that, you logged in, you tuned in with your AM stereo. Um, yeah, I was sold on that. I was sold on radio. I was sold on, I mean, if you could sell somebody on it, it has been sold to me.
Yes.
Uh, but,
Yes.
um, but mail, I think is probably one of the craziest things for agents because agents have spent so much money on mail and,
Mm.
like especially expires. And the thing is, by the time that mail piece gets there, man, that seller's done talked to 10 other agents.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did they get your mail piece, they got a stack of them, this thick. And I've been on appointments where the person would have all the mailers and all the business cards for mailers sitting on the kitchen counter. And some of the times I would look at it and go, "Oh my God, I didn't know we had that many agents in our market." You know, and
Yeah.
I think mail is it's hard to cut through the clutter. And
It's hard, and the national average of return is like 1%. So, I mean, I don't want to go with a 1% penetration rate. I would rather, probably about 30% of my business this year has been from expireds. Maybe
yep,
35. I'd have to check. So, if I'm having that kind of penetration rate from an hour a day checking out new expireds and then taking those and follow up with them, I'm going to focus my time there. And that's why it's important to track your numbers and track your activities, because you're going to see what's giving you the best return on results. If you get one from doing the mailer, but you're spending 2 or 3 hours a week doing that mailer is not worth it. Let it go.
I agree with you. You know what I like about expireds and for sale by owners the most is that when they want to sell their house because they had a sign stuck out in the front yard. You know, it's so easy to figure out who wants to sell their house. You drive around and you look for the sign, or you get on Craigslist. And a lot of agents I know I've talked about lately, and I don't know if you saw the post I put. Well, actually, you commented on the post I put on Facebook. Agents get so hung up on they need something to get started. They need some sort of expensive tool, some sort of expensive dialer. And the thing is, there's so many free sources that they never even look at. And I think it's a problem in our industry. You know, a lot of agents they go to a big franchise, they're sold on a training program. You know, everybody goes through the month-long training program. They sing a bunch of songs together and wave their arms and stuff. And then they get out of the training program and they go, oh shit, everything we learned cost a fortune. I'm brand new. And I have $30 in my checking account, you know? But they haven't went after Craigslist. They haven't went after Zillow. They haven't went through Facebook Marketplace. They haven't exhausted all the free leads. And I mean, the public filings, I mean, they're a fantastic source of free leads. Craigslist is a fantastic source. I mean, there's so many lead sources they could go through that cost $0.
Zero. And I used to do it. We have the public notices up here for properties going to foreclosure. And the way it is in New Hampshire is you can go in there and get that thing listed and get, postpone it if you know what you're doing. It's simple. You mentioned Zillow, Make Me Move, and For Sale by Owner. If you're not mining those and making those calls, then you're missing some free opportunity there, and you're already paying for your cell phone bill. So at this point, we haven't spent any money. When a property is just listed, go knock on everybody in the neighborhoods. I hate door knocking, but I do it once in a while because I want a house in that neighborhood. Yeah, so spent no money.
Chances are, if you don't have money, you probably have time.
You're right about that.
Typically, we have one or the other. We either have money we can go spend, or we have time we can go spend, do something. So, I mean, dude, when I first started, man, I sat there looking up the numbers manually. I mean, shit, whitepages.com and switchboard.com were like my best friends. Yeah. And man, I would spend 2 or 3 hours looking up numbers to call for an hour. And agents today whine because they got to log into Redex, to actually make the calls. Man, we had to put forth massive effort. And there's so many things like that though, but there's a lot easier free leads now than there was then. At that time when I started, I think this is one of those stories, when I was a kid, I walked 10 miles through snow to school. But when I first started selling real estate, dude, to get numbers to call was impossible. Yeah. I mean, we didn't have as much competition back then calling because you had to cross all these hurdles to actually get the numbers. However, what a lot of agents don't realize now is they think there's a lot of competition, but most of the competition has no system and they're not consistent. Just somebody said they needed to call, so they started calling yesterday. And if the scariest thing for most agents isn't the person saying no on the phone, it's what if the person says, yes, come to my house. Then that creates a whole nother problem for them because they don't know what to do when they get there.
I say that all the time, Jason, that people don't go for it, not because they're scared of failure, because they're scared of success.
Yep.
And that's 100% right. They're expecting all those no's. And when somebody says yes, and it's all usually out of the dark, it sends them in a tailspin. What do I do? Now, all of a sudden the world stops, Yeah,
that's right.
And let me just touch on this. I saw this in a post yesterday or the day before. You can never stop lead generating. So I've had 23 things under contract by myself when I was a bank-owned agent, and I just kept doing the same tasks every day. I didn't go crazy like, the world was coming down. I sat down, I did my transact. I was methodical in the schedule. And you have to be methodical too in your lead generation, because when you do finally get 2 or 3 or 4 things in the contract and you're running around crazy because you don't know what to do, and in a year you're going to be old hat at it, but you don't know what to do, you can't take away your lead generation time. You got to get that hour and at least a half hour every day, right? To continually regenerate.
And you kind of need it more then, because what happens with a lot of agents is they get really, really busy. So their business is kind of up here. So then all of a sudden they get really busy. So the first thing that goes by the wayside is I don't need to lead generate because I'm busy right now. I got a lot of business. I got a lot of pendings going on. So all of a sudden, when those things stop, their business kind of goes down. They're not getting new contracts, and they find themselves in a position where all of a sudden they're almost starting over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates like a lot of peaks and valleys in the business. But consistent prospecting is what's going to get you consistent listings and consistent transactions. And a lot of agents miss that too. They think when they're busy, they don't have to. And the thing that happens is most of the time we're busy as hell in the summer months. Once August, September gets here, and most agents start calming down. They start, it's been all summer. They've been showing property. It's been hot, so August, September, most agents, kids are going back to school. Most agents are taking time off.
Yeah.
So once the summer's over, the summer's not the busy time for me, man. September, October, November, December are the busy time because that's when I'm building inventory for next spring. It's like listing hunting season. John, listing hunting season and deer hunting season are pretty much the same months.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but that's the truth. Listing season and deer season are the same months in your market.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I call it, I really prospect hard October through maybe March. And then after that, it's just follow up and maintenance. Because a lot of agents will put their properties to expire around the holidays or January 1st or December 31st. So all of a sudden there's all these new expireds that come on the market. I reach out, I call it the expired buffet. So that's when I'm really turning it on. And then I'm maintaining the follow-up through the rest of the year with those. And then, they trickle through one here, one there versus 20 in a day. But I think, one of the things agents struggle with is creating like a schedule to do anything. And I was just writing this down really quick. If they just check the expireds every morning and made those calls, you're looking like a half hour, right? A day in most average markets. If you pick 2 or 3 listings that you really liked, and this comes down a little bit deeper. You're picking these listings based upon what you want to do. So I work with a lot of agents, and let's say their average sale price is $180,000, but the area average price is say $250,000. What I do is tell them to focus all their lead generation activity on the 250 and not the 180, because now obviously you're going to start getting $250,000 listings. They generate $250,000 buyers. They just had a 30% increase in their business by doing it nothing. Yep. But if you spent 45 minutes to an hour every single day doing the 10, 10, 20 and a half hour a day doing your expired, you're looking at like an hour and a half. You do that on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday if you want. I take Monday off from lead generation. And then on Friday, you just called everybody in your sphere. Not everybody in your sphere. Let's say you have 100 people, okay? You're going to call 25 this week, 25 next week, 25 week after, and 25 the week after, right? That's 25 phone calls to people that you know or people that were past clients or whatnot. If you can't do that, and we're talking right there maybe what, 1, 3, 6, less than 10 hours of lead generation. Yeah, that's your job. Yep, that's your job.
It's part-time. Forget about 40 hours a week, dude. The income producing activities, if you're actually doing income producing activities 40 hours a week, you couldn't spend all the money you were making. Unless you're just doing something absolutely wrong. But typically your lead producing activities, man, if you've done them 2-3 hours a day, you're gonna get plenty of business. You're gonna see you're hitting your goals. You're gonna see you're making constant progress. You're gonna notice you're getting better on the phone. That's something too, man. A lot of agents just don't call long enough to get really good on the phone.
No, and here's the one thing I try to tell people all the time. You get this little bit of fear, and whatever that fear is, I try to tell them that person on the other line, they don't know you, so who cares what they think? Let it go. Get it right out of your mind. And then you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about what the other person's thinking about the rejection or anything else like that. And let me just add this. When you're calling on Friday to your past client, when you're calling all these homeowners Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're also asking them, if you get them on the phone, hey, do you know anybody looking to buy? You're not ready. You're not looking to sell. Do you happen to know anybody looking to buy? Because when you're new in the business, you're going to, it's just the way that it is. You're probably going to work with more buyers than listings. And, it's just par for the course. That's what you have to do. That's the proving ground. So by calling these people on Friday as well, you're not only asking if they know anybody looking to sell, they know anybody looking to buy. So it's not just listing lead generation when you're doing this. You get somebody on the phone. If you can't get the listing, ask for a buyer.
Yep. Man, everybody knows somebody looking for one of three things: to buy, sell, or rent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody knows somebody looking to buy a house, sell a house, or rent a house, you know? And it's just common sense, man. It's common sense. So how long did we promise we were telling everybody we were going to do this? Or
I didn't think we were going to go over 45 minutes. So where are we at right now?
we're like 30 minutes.
Okay, so we'll wrap it up with a couple pointers. One other pointer that I just want to say to everybody is that this is a relationship game. Okay, I know everybody's looking for that online tool or that social ad guru or whatever it is. Stop thinking about that for a minute. Stop spending your money. Start leading with revenue, because what I'm about to tell you is what built my business, and I spend very little money on any of this stuff. But if you join, I mentioned it in a post this morning or commented on your post this morning. If you join something like a Rotary, if you join some other organization where there's people there. My best friend, who is a mortgage guy, he's getting ready to buy a 30,000 square foot office building, right? Him and I kind of got into the business at the same time, so I'm watching him grow. He's now on the board of the largest hospital in the area. He was on the board of the Children's Hospital for the past 2 years. He's involved. Every relationship that he has is systematic, okay? He networks with these people. He knows who he's voting for. He doesn't care if you're voting for Hillary, Obama, Bernie, or any of those people. He goes to all of the events where all the attorneys invite him. Why? Because there's other people there. And he makes those connections. And when you're seen out there in the community, so you get to think outside the box. I hate doing it. I really do. But you have to make all these bridges with other people, because people buy houses, and the more people you talk to, the more houses you're going to sell.
Yeah, that's right, man. I agree with you. I tell you what, how about if we do a quick recap, man? I got 6 things we talked about. I've been taking notes while you were talking, John.
All right.
6 things we talked about on this. Let's touch back over them and kind of do a recap for everybody that's listening, and everybody that listens to this in the future. So the number one thing agents have to have is a schedule, right?
Yeah, time block schedule.
You got to have a time block schedule. You got to set time aside to prospect. You got to set time aside to do those daily activities and those daily income producing activities. Number 2, you need to find systems that you can model, people that you can copy. The stuff I do, the stuff John does, honestly, we didn't come up with this stuff by ourselves. I don't know about John, but I'm not smart enough to come up with some of the stuff I'm doing.
Yeah.
What I did was
it's all stolen.
Pieces. Yeah, I stole it from other people. I took bits and pieces, and I created a system that worked for me and my business. So you got to find systems that you can model. Number 3, John, this was something you said. You have to lead. Jim Rohn has a quote that I really like. You can't get somebody else to do your push-ups for you. You got to make the calls yourself. You got to go out there and work yourself. You can't hire a virtual assistant that's in the Philippines to do those calls for you and stuff like that. You have to actually go out there and work, meet people, build trust. I think that leads us to the next thing. You said this is a relationship business, and you have to build relationships. You have to build trust. You have to ask for business sometimes, and you got to hope that they give you that business, and you got to follow up with them. You got to be top of mind with them, because everybody knows a real estate agent. The problem is some people forget they know that real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We talked about modeling. We talked about then the last thing is agents forget, and we kind of forget about those cost-effective lead generation methods. And those things like Craigslist, like Zillow Makes Me Move, like creating those landing pages. What was the company you mentioned?
List Reports. Listreports.com.
Yeah. Listreports.com. And man, there was a lot we went over today in 30 minutes. That was quick.
I think that was pretty good. And, the key takeaway from here is a lot of agents are struggling to get going. you and I started the same way. None of us were thrown into this business. I mean, even Caesar had to fight his way to the top, right? So we were thrown into the fire, and we worked, and we, through perseverance, hard work, and determination, we succeeded. We did what needed to be done every single day. And, you know, by having an idea, by running your business like a business, because nobody's going to give it to you, you can survive and you can thrive, but you have to understand it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's going to take time. There's no system out there that's instantly going to make you the number one agent in the area. Time is the only system.
That's it, man. I tell you what, we got let's see, got a couple of questions. Well, step into a meeting. Dude, that's a lot of business from expiring. Yeah, onboarding. David's right, man. Onboarding in our industry is a big problem. Agents just don't they're not taught how to get from point A to point B, and that's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, man, you got anything else you want to add, John?
I think that was good. I know we talked a lot about there, but it's really, we didn't discuss anything today that costs any money. It's picking up the phone when you finally get a little money. I'm a big fan of leading with no debt. I know that you are too. But if you have to put anything on a credit card right now to get your business going, the only thing that you should be putting on a credit card right now to get any kind of business is a dialer. RedX. I use RedX. I know you use RedX. I use RedX because of you. You turned me on to RedX, and as a result, this year I've put about 60 grand in my pocket.
You know what, man? I've been using them for over 10 years. They told me that I was one of their first 300 subscribers. But you know what the thing about it is? It's data. Expired data is kind of funky because it's mined data. It's not somebody going to a website, entering their phone number in. Expired data is data that's it's been mined and collected. So there's no company that's going to give you 100% correct leads. But I'm using RedX Onyx, and I'll tell you what, if there's 10 expireds in my market, I probably have numbers for 9 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And probably out of those 9 numbers, probably 6 or 7 are correct, or at least I have a number for somebody in the household. You know, it might be their kid's cell phone number, but I've got a number for somebody in the household where, you know, they answer and I go, hey, can I speak to your mom? You know, or, you know, it's a family member that lives next door and you just ask, hey, look, I'm trying to get in touch with, you know, Tom Smith or whoever. Do you have a good number for them? And 9 out of 10 times, they just give me the number. It's kind of crazy.
That's funny.
But I've tried other people, man. And I keep going back to them just because it's the best data and the most cost-effective solution out there.
Yeah. So that's it. Do the dirt. If you're going to spend any money, buy the first tool. That's the first tool to stop moving dirt. And then as these sessions go on, you can progress to other tools that I know you've used or I've used that have helped. But right now, I think we threw quite a bit of stuff out there from a free aspect.
You know?
And you know, if there's any questions anybody has, I know they can hit us up in the group or PM us.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Hey, you have a great day.
Everybody, thank you as well. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.